the summer of 2021, one Ethereum transaction cost over $300 in gas fees. Yes, $300 just to send a token or mint an NFT. And while traders complained, competitors like Solana and Avalanche were quietly promising the same thing Ethereum offered, but faster, cheaper, and sleeker. So here's the question. What happens if Ethereum, the blockchain that built decentralized finance and NFTs, suddenly loses its throne? What if tomorrow it's no longer the king of smart contract? Could the entire crypto world collapse? Or would something even bigger rise in its place? This is not another hype video about Ethereum's price. This is not about whether ETH hits $10,000 or $1,000. Wouldn't you agree those debates miss the real story? Instead, this is the story of how Ethereum rose from an experiment in 2015 to a $400 billion ecosystem, how it nearly collapsed under its own weight, and why it faces the most dangerous test in its history right now. But can a network this massive truly keep reinventing itself before it's too late? We'll go back to its origins, relive its biggest crises, and reveal the looming question that could change the future of crypto forever. Can Ethereum survive in a world where competition is faster, regulators are stricter, and the next big platform could take its place overnight? And more importantly, if Ethereum falls, what does it mean for every investor, developer, and user depending on it today? By the end, you'll see Ethereum not just as a cryptocurrency, but as a fragile empire that could collapse or prove unstoppable. So, are you ready to find out which way history bends? In 2015, a 21-year-old programmer named Vitalik Buterin introduced something radical, a blockchain that wasn't just money like Bitcoin, but a world computer, a platform where anyone could build decentralized apps, run smart contracts, and automate trust without banks, lawyers, or middlemen. At first, almost nobody outside of hardcore crypto circles cared. Ethereum was slow, it was confusing, and most importantly, it had no real use cases. But isn't that how every revolution begins? Ignored, underestimated, and dismissed as impossible. The DAO, a massive Ethereum-based experiment, was hacked. Over $50 million in ETH vanished overnight. The community faced on should they undo the hack and compromise immutability, or let Ethereum's reputation die? The decision to hard fork, to rewrite history, saved the network, but it split the community forever. Out of that crisis, Ethereum Classic was born. This was the first time Ethereum nearly lost its throne before it even had one. But if Ethereum could be broken so early, what hope did it have of surviving future wars? But Ethereum refused to die. In 2020, something clicked to DeFi. Decentralized finance exploded on Ethereum. Lending, borrowing, yield farming. Billions of dollars poured in. Then came the NFT boom. Suddenly, Ethereum wasn't just a blockchain. It was the cultural epicenter of Web3. By 2021, Ethereum settled more transaction volume than Visa. It was unstoppable, or so it seemed. But was this growth a foundation, or just a bubble waiting to burst? At its peak, the cracks widened. Ethereum was congested. Gas fees spiked. Ordinary users were locked out. Competitors smelled blood. Solana, Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, all promised faster, cheaper blockchains. Billions in capital started flowing away from Ethereum. Meanwhile, regulators circled. Could Ethereum be classified as a security? Could governments choke off stablecoins, the lifeblood of DeFi? And even deeper, could Ethereum scale before it collapses under its own success? This is Ethereum's greatest problem, the paradox of being too important, too slow, and too expensive all at once. So here's the question. If Ethereum can't solve this paradox, does it lose everything it has built? From 2023 to 2025, Ethereum has been tested harder than ever, and somehow, it's still standing. The Shanghai upgrade unlocked billions in staked ETH. Layer 2s like Arbitrum and Optimism exploded with activity. And by 2024, the Dencun upgrade slashed gas fees on rollups, proving Ethereum could actually scale. Add to that the approval of US spot ETH ETFs, and suddenly, Ethereum wasn't just a playground for crypto natives, it was on Wall Street's radar. But can institutional money protect Ethereum from its own flaws? Then came 2025, a roller coaster year. Ethereum suffered one of its worst crashes since 2020, plunging over 60% in Q1 to lows around $1,400. Analysts called it the end of Ethereum's dominance. But within months, it roared back. BlackRock pushed tokenization of real-world assets, gas fees dropped to fractions of a cent, and the Pectra upgrade simplified Layer 2 development. By August, ETH had rebounded to over $4,300, reminding everyone why it's still the backbone of decentralized finance. But how many times can Ethereum cheat death before one fall proves final? And yet, the risks remain. Ethereum today processes just 13 transactions per second on its base layer, entirely dependent on fragile layer 2s for scale. Competitors like Solana continue to lure users, and regulators remain unpredictable. But despite every failure, every crash, and every rival's attempt, Ethereum keeps doing what it has always done best: survive. The real question is, how long can survival alone keep the crown secure? Ethereum's story is not about perfection, it's about survival. Like Rome, like Microsoft in the early 2000s, it's an empire constantly under siege, but too entrenched, too battle-tested, and too essential to vanish easily. But will its survival instinct be enough when the next empire rises? The question is not whether Ethereum loses tomorrow. It's whether it can adapt fast enough to remain the king in a world where empires fall overnight. If the internet itself had challengers but stayed dominant, can Ethereum mirror that same resilience? Think of Ethereum like the internet itself. Slow, clunky, full of flaws, but impossible to replace once the world builds on top of it. And maybe, just maybe, the iPhone of blockchains is already here, and Ethereum is fighting to avoid becoming the next BlackBerry. So, what side of history will Ethereum land on? If you want to know which competitor has the best chance of dethroning Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, or something else entirely, click on the next video right here. Because the next king of crypto may already be rising. Which one do you think it will be?